Good morning.
Good morning.
How are we all doing today?
Excellent.
Excellent. I'm sure with your 3-day weekend,
4-day weekend?
some of you have 4-day weekends, 3-day weekends, maybe a few 5-day weekends. You all have enough time to do your homework and catch up on all the past homework that you've been missing. Right.
Right.
Okay. So let's remind you what last week's homework was. You remember last week we talked about our first meeting on networking. And we talked a lot about what networking was and what scripts were, and scripts to talk to your primary people and scripts to talk to your secondary people. And I had asked you to develop a primary script and practice it out loud with your partner, and develop a secondary script and practice that out loud with your partner, and bring both scripts in your next class. Did anybody do that? Okay, Peg did it. Half? Which half?
You wrote it.
You wrote it. Didn't practice, but you wrote it. Would anyone like to volunteer to call me up right now as your primary, as part of your primary script? Would anyone like to get their piece of paper out and read it out loud and make believe they're calling me? Or we'll have double the homework today. Anybody? Come on. For those who wrote it, pick it up. Dee, you gonna do it? Okay, Dee, go.
Hi, Harold. How are you?
Great, Dee. How you doing?
Pretty good. I don't know if you knew, but American Scandia was acquired by Prudential Financial, and they're consolidating all their operations into Fort Washington, Pennsylvania.
I didn't know that.
So I was wondering if I could set up a 20-minute meeting with you to discuss my next steps and get your feedback. And I would like to inquire if you can refer me to anyone who might also have some ideas and expertise in the field which I'm looking at.
Fabulous. The only thing I would recommend is you actually set up a time.
You didn't let me finish.
I'm sorry. Yes, I would love to get together with you, Dee. I would love to get together with you.
Can we get together next Wednesday at like 2?
I'm a little busy at Wednesday at 2. How about Thursday at 1?
Thursday at 1 works well for me. Thank you.
Excellent. We'll see you then. Have a great day. Good job. Good job. That wasn't too hard. Would anyone different like to go with their secondary script? Come on, look at the back table because all of you guys raised your hand. Anyone like to read their secondary script out loud? Anyone? No? You didn't write yours? Penny, you want to read your secondary script out loud?
I pretty much went by.
So you just wrote wording of mine.
But just put you as, well, Harold, Derek told me to call.
Okay.
And who I am.
Okay. I think, in fact, Charlene gave me an idea. She didn't realize she gave me an idea. But she gave me an idea. Because she was telling me how she really thought that the little trick I played on you guys last week to get all the teacher information, she thought it was really, really cool. She goes, can I get up next week, go in front of the class and do it for what I want to do? And I originally said, no, of course not, because everyone would want to do that. Then I said, well, the really good idea out of this, and I'm going to remind you every week or every couple of weeks, is that look around the room. Look around the room at everybody. Before you leave American Scandia, you should try to set up one networking meeting with every person in this room. And every person is not in this room. Because what's going to be cool about that? The cool thing would be you'll have 40 times that you'll have gone through your networking primary script, maybe not your secondary script, and you're going to go through 40 times your agenda. We're going to go over agendas today. You're going to have 40 networking meetings. So the first time you have to go outside of your familiar circle will be your 41st meeting. You won't be nervous at all, because you have done it 40 different times. Now, obviously, it'd be great if you could do it for every single person. If not, you're only hurting yourself, because there's people around this room that know people in companies that you're trying to get at, and you don't know that right now. And you're not going to know unless you sit down and talk to them. So it'll be a 15, 20-minute meeting, during your, God bless you, during your break time, during your lunch time, sometime during the afternoon. Obviously, I'm going to be giving you permission to do that, so your bosses, as the work continues to get done, will also be giving you permission to do that. So I strongly urge you guys to take advantage of that, start picking up the phone, especially after you get the agenda. I wouldn't do it today. I'm not sure if it's part of today's homework. I don't think it's part of today's homework. I think it's part of next week's homework. But think about talking to absolutely every single person here in operations. And, by the way, if you're feeling really good about it, people upstairs in customer services, people in marketing, people in, have these meetings now before you leave the company. It's a lot easier to have these meetings now than to come back, 2-3 months or 2-3 weeks after you've left here. Okay, so today, we made it pretty easy for you last week, right? Last week you picked up the phone and you got Harold right away and you gave your speech. Or you picked the phone and you got to the secondary person right away and you gave your spiel and they said yes. Well, it's not always going to be that easy, okay? Because there are people out there that are called admin assistants. Dun, 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 dun. And they're also known as screeners, right? Because some of the people you're going to be talking to are pretty important, they're pretty busy, and sometimes the screeners go above and beyond to try to protect their time, so they're not setting up meetings with absolutely everybody about absolutely everything. And obviously, vendors call up all the time. There's Kathy does 5 million times. I've pretty much had her call back a vendor and say, nope, I'm not available, and boom, it's gone there. So, how do you get around screeners? The first thing I'm going to tell you, it's not on this board. The best, and you should write this down, the best way to get around screeners is to call early in the morning or late in the afternoon. Because Kathy, while she works really, really hard, she's only in from 9 to 5, okay? So if you call before 8, 9 o'clock, 8:30, you got to figure out, how early the boss gets in that Kathy's not in, or how late the boss is staying that Kathy is not, because the boss theoretically is spending a lot more time with ours. That is the best way to get around screeners. I give that advice to folks that are actually, doing salesmen. I have a friend who's a salesman who's trying to get a hold of somebody. I said, call early, call late. The admin person is blocking the path. Call during lunchtime. Find a time to call when that person's not there, because most of the time, they're on set hours. Well, okay, but how do you get around screeners? So here, and obviously you have this in writing, you have this in front of you. There's going to be a bunch of different questions that people are going to ask, and here are some of the answers that I would recommend that you say. So the first question is, can you tell me the nature of your call? Kathy's on the other end. She goes, can you tell me the nature of your call? Your response is, Harold Derrick recommended I get his input on a strategy that I've been working on. Short, sweet, to the point. Okay? She obviously can't help you if Harold Derrick wants to talk to your boss, or Harold Derrick recommends that you talk to his boss or her boss. Is there someone else who can help you? Well, that might be possible. But Harold told me to seek Joe's input before speaking to someone else. I'd really like to be able to tell Harold that I did speak to him. Okay, now you're making, you're saying, Harold told me to do this. I want to get back to Harold. I want to make Harold happy, So, he's really, this guy's really the guy I want to talk to. Can they get back to you? Hey, that would be terrific. But, it might be difficult for him or her to reach me, since I'm in and out a lot. So is there a time when he or she does not have a scheduled meeting or appointment? When is it best to phone again? Now, why is that the response up there?
Because you're not waiting for the phone.
Because you're not waiting for the phone to ring. Because you're not being passive. If you said, yep, Joe can get back to me, you're sitting there again waiting for Joe to get back to you. And how fast do you call again? Joe didn't get back to you in a day. Oh, now you get back to you in 2 days. Should I call now? So the best thing to do is continue to keep control of the entire issue. Is there something I can help you with? I appreciate your offer to help me. If you make appointments for Mr. X, perhaps you can schedule an appointment for me on the basis of Harold Derrick's recommendation. So, in some cases, the admin might know that Harold calls up Mr. X all the time. Okay? They're a really good referral. And, oh yeah, if Harold says it, I'll set it up for you. Chances are it's not going to happen. Chances are you're going to be going to the other ones as well. But you want to keep control, and you want to keep mentioning the person who recommended you. If you're not just calling this person out of the clear blue sky, Harold Derrick told you to call him. Harold Derrick. It's your contact. He's the person. You wouldn't be making these calls in case that was the case. Okay, so that's screeners. Now what about objections? You finally get a hold of John Doe. And John Doe, and for the most part, the good news is, for the most part, this networking thing has been going on for 10, 15 years, especially with all the downsides. So for the most part, people know what the heck you're doing. I mean, when people call me up, they don't worry about any of these things, because I know why they're calling. And I'm more than willing to help, because people have helped me out in the past. So chances are a majority of the people are going to be able to help you, and will want to help you. But some folks still don't believe they have anything to offer. They don't have a job, they don't have any control over the jobs, and you need to allay their fears by giving them frequent responses back that shows them, look, all you're looking for is advice. I mean, what networking is, you're looking for their advice. You're looking for their counsel. Because they know something that you don't. You've been recommended to talk to them by someone that you both know. So I don't have any job openings right now. Well, I understand you may not have any job openings for me. What I'm really looking for is information and advice. Okay? And oh, by the way, I strongly recommend you keep these things by the phone when you're calling for the screeners and when you're calling to talk to the person. You know, make sure you've read them a couple times so you know where they are on the page. So you're not going, I don't have any job openings right now. Well, a lot of things at the meeting would be helpful. You know, you want to answer the right question, okay? The second one, my calendar's filled up next week. Well, how about 2 weeks? Are early mornings or late afternoons better for you? So not only are you saying, okay, next week's bad, you're on vacation, you're really busy with work. You know, how about 2 weeks, and let's get it, well, what's better, mornings or afternoons? You want to flip that one right out there. You want to get a specific time frame. Well, I'm not sure I can help. Well, a lot of things at this meeting would be helpful. You know, Harold Derrick did suggest I call you because of your expertise. Okay? Short, sweet, to the point. Why don't you just send me your resume? What don't you ever do? Never, ever, ever send a resume. But you turn it around. You say, well, you know, one of the pieces I'm looking for is advice on my resume. So I'd love to bring it down. You know, I'm sure that you see a lot more resumes than I do. I'd love to learn what items get you excited. So I'd like to bring it to you, show you, and you can help me while we go over it. And oh, by the way, if that's the case, make sure on your agenda item you write a little note, you know, make believe we're going to go over the resume. You know, you have to do that.
Make believe? Isn't that what we're going for?
The question was, make believe, is that what you're going for? Okay? I mean, you might be going for advice on your resume. I never was. You know, I was pretty comfortable. I still am comfortable with what my resume looks like. So I was never looking for someone to give me advice. Now, I might give the resume and ask for advice, but I don't really want advice. I'll write down everything the person says, but I'm not going to change my resume. I like my resume. So you know, the purpose of giving them the resume is to get the resume in your hands, show it face to face, and hopefully impress the person face to face. Oh, by the way, after the last meeting, someone came by, in fact, he's not here, it was Mark, came by and said, you know, Harold, this networking thing is really good for you and someone at your level. Okay? But you know, I'm kind of down in the trenches, and I'm not sure if networking is really going to work for me. How many people really are thinking that in the back of their mind? A lot of you. Good. You know, yeah. So, remember what the purpose of networking is a few things, right? It's to get advice and to get counsel and to get in front of people that make decisions on hiring, right? Because if you can get in front of a person who makes a decision about hiring and they're impressed with you and they're impressed with your credentials, they may hire you. We all agree with that? Anyone disagree with that? Okay. So, here's Harold. And right now, I'm the vice president, right? We all know that. And who are the people that make hiring decisions for vice presidents? CEOs, senior vice presidents. Well, let's go with COOs, senior vice presidents, and CEOs. Is that pretty reasonable, right? So theoretically, for networking purposes, I'm going to be trying to talk to a lot of people to try to find a very small hierarchy of folks. Now,
Yeah, but those people don't exist with American Scanning any longer.
I'm looking for these people outside of American Scanning.
To speak to them when you're in a position.
Right, I'm looking, if I can talk to the CEO of Travelers, if I was continuing to look for a job that way, and talk to the CEO and show them, you know, my resume and ask for advice, and I can get in front of them, and they go, you know what, I got a position over an XYZ organization. That's my goal. My goal is to get in front of
That level.
decision makers. Now remember, at my level, I only have 2 or 3 titles to go in front of. At your level, okay, you know, underneath could be a director, right? Maureen's underneath me. Underneath the director could be a manager. Underneath the manager could be supervisor. And then the front line. Not only is there one supervisor, there's a bunch of supervisors, right? There's a bunch of supervisors underneath the manager, right? And oh, by the way, there's a bunch of managers underneath this director, right? And oh, by the way, Harold might have more than one director that works underneath him, the hierarchy for who you guys need to get in front of is so much larger than the hierarchy I'm going to be able to get in front of to find a job. All you need to do is talk to anyone who's a supervisor, manager, director, or above, and hope that maybe they don't have a job in their organization, but they know their peer who's a supervisor has a job in their organization. So, if you don't think networking is going to work for you, I believe you're sadly mistaken. And I believe it's going to work twice as good as for you as it's going to work for me. Because the population of people I can get in front of is so much smaller than it is for you folks. And I'm sure you're going to prove me right. More objections. I'm really busy this time of year. Well, I'm certain at your level you nearly always are. But I really would appreciate your ideas and promise to limit our meeting to 30 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is. I'll be focused and organized. Which would be more convenient for you, early morning or late afternoon? You see a pattern here, right? We're trying to get something specific. We're trying to make sure we're going to get that meeting. Why don't you just talk to Mary Jane? It's great that you want help. Who do you suggest I call? Okay, I'll follow up on that. But Harold Derrick has convinced me that your advice is the key. I really would like to meet with you. Call personnel. Let me emphasize that I'm still pretty early in my job search. I need your help in reviewing my plans to see if they're realistic. I need about 30 minutes of your time before you send me on to personnel. And you're trying to get a meeting with John Doe. What do you want to see me about? I'm currently exploring new career opportunities in customer services, and Harold Derrick thought that you'd be a good person to discuss my plan and perhaps get some ideas. I assure you, he gave me no reason to believe that you had an open position in your organization or knew of one elsewhere. The goal is to persist through 2 objections. Okay, they give you 2 objections. You're going to try to go through 2 objections. You're going to want to say what you have to say and stop talking. Don't apologize. You want to have a business meeting with this person. Harold Derrick told you this person is someone you want to talk to. You value Harold Derrick's opinion. That person values Harold Derrick's opinion, for the most part. And you just want to have a business meeting with the person. Now, after 2 objections, if they really are just, you know what, okay, they weren't very helpful. Now, if Harold knows them really well, Harold can pick up the phone and call them up and say, you know, why aren't you meeting with Maureen? I told you to meet with Maureen. Go meet with her. You jerk. So if I know the person well enough, right? Any questions on screeners? Any questions on objections?
I do.
Yep.
You know, Harold Derrick is not going to be there, so if you're really more of a cold calling where you'd like to get to a level you used to be, how do you, I mean, there's nobody going to be behind you suggested I call you. So how do you approach that? You know, it's not going to be Hi Joe.
Yeah, well,
And it's not going to be Harold Derrick.
Well, first off,
Call you.
so let's take a time out. Let's take a step back. What I'm suggesting you do as part of network. Let's take an example. You decide you want to get into, pick a company from your list. Pick one of your companies. IBM. And you sit down and you network with Janice. Say, hi Janice, I'd like to meet with you for 20, 30 minutes. Can you meet with me? Yes. And Janice, you sit down, you go over to the corner over there, and you go through the agenda, which we're going to go through. You sit down, and you have a nice conversation, and you finally take out your company thing, and you say, I'm looking for any contacts at IBM. And Janice goes, my next door neighbor is a supervisor at IBM. Okay?
Then you have a name.
There's your name.
Yeah.
So you're going to call up. This has nothing to do with cold call. You're not going to pick up the phone and call up someone you don't even know unless Janice told you to call them. So you're going to pick up the phone, and you're going to say, Janice Kniper told me to give you a call. Oh, Janice, yeah, my next door neighbor, she's great. She bakes brownies for me, and I cut her lawn, and hey, come on down, let's talk for 20 minutes. Or you might get some objections, but if it goes through really smoothly, you're going to sit down in front of with Janice, or not with Janice. You're going to sit down using Janice's name, go through your agenda, and Janice doesn't work for IBM. She never worked for IBM. Maybe she will, but she's not planning on working for IBM. IBM's not on her list, but she knows somebody that works at IBM, and that's the whole thing about networking. Who do you know who knows somebody who's a decision maker at one of those 25 companies you are trying to get to? And it could be anybody in this room. Anyone know anyone who works at IBM? Just for that quick? Oh, Priscilla, Maureen, Dean. There's 3 people right there who know somebody at IBM. Now, the good news is if they know a decision maker at IBM that actually has an open position that you want, that would be perfect. But we don't know that until you sit down and meet with them. Okay? That was great, guys. Thanks. Even if you don't know it, I appreciate you raising your hand. Okay, now we're gonna get into the nuts and bolts of networking, a networking meeting. Because you just promised the person, you said, Harold Derek told me to call you up, and you promised the person you're gonna get out of there in 20 to 30 minutes. So you need to know what you're gonna do, and you need to be ready. You're not gonna hand this agenda to this person. This is your agenda, you're gonna hold on to it, it's in your hands, it's in your laps. But you wanna get through these items as quickly as possible. So the first thing you wanna do is you wanna go through the meeting purpose, because you wanna say, thank you very much, Mr. John Doe, for meeting with me. I just want to let you know the purpose of my meeting is, we'll go over what that is in the next slide. But you want to do that in about 2 minutes. You want to have a self-introduction in about 4 minutes. Part of that is going to be the 2-minute drill, which we're going to talk about. It should take about 2 minutes. Information gathering, so you're going to ask several questions. We'll go over what some of those questions might be. We can almost spoon feed you with what an agenda could be. And then you're going to close in 2 minutes, and that's 20 minutes, right? And at the end of 20 minutes, you're going to say to them, look, you know, I promised you 20 minutes. It's right at 20 minutes, so I'm ready to leave. If you want to keep talking, I'll be more than happy. You know, I'd love to keep talking to you, but I know you're a busy person, and if you have to get to your next meeting, I want to make sure that I follow through on my promise. Sometimes they'll say, no, let's keep talking. I really want to go through blah, 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 blah. And sometimes they'll say, yep, you're right, my next meeting is in 2 minutes, and I got to get out of here, or it's across the street. Okay, meeting purpose. The first piece of the agenda item, which is 2 minutes long. You want to thank them for taking time out of their busy schedule to meet with you. You want to, again, promise to be out in 20 to 30 minutes. If you told them 20, it's 20. If you told them 30, it's 30. You're going to tell them what your proposed agenda is. So what I want to do is I want to introduce myself. I'm hoping that through our conversation I can get some referrals, some advice, and some counsel about my career strategy, my job strategy, my job planning, what I'm looking to do. I have no reason, I would strongly suggest you make a statement something like this. I have no reason to believe that you have a job in your organization or know of anyone or know elsewhere, but I can certainly use your advice or counsel. Now, why are you doing this?
Takes the pressure off.
Take the pressure off. I'm trying to take the pressure off. You say, look, I just want your advice. And then if this is something that you might, you know, so say for instance, Bill Drodos is having a networking meeting, and he's meeting with somebody on the life side of a company that's thinking about getting into the variable life business. Oh, by the way, you know, I'd also like to offer you, you know, I've got 3 years experience in variable life and running an operations area in variable life. I would love to answer any questions you might have about starting up this variable life business, because I read the paper that you guys are thinking about starting up variable life. It'd be great if you had something to offer them. If you don't, you don't. But if you do, that is kind of the glue. I mean, I've had networking meetings where they've gone much longer than 20 or 30 minutes, and they've been more give and take of, you know, advice that I've had for, you know, doing re-engineering, or advice that I've had for running this kind of an operation. And, you know, they're thinking about doing this, they're thinking about doing that. You know, they see my resume and say, oh, can you tell me a little bit more about such and such? I'd be more than happy to give you advice as to what I would do if I were you. It could also be a pseudo-interview. Maybe they're looking to hire someone in variable life operations. You know, maybe it's a hidden one, maybe it's partially hidden. Bill doesn't know that, and he's, you know, let me tell you what we did in operations. Now we did this and we streamlined that and we blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden now you're interviewing. You don't even know you're interviewing. And if the guy or the gal is impressed, you might be coming back for a second or third interview. Meeting purpose. Everyone get that? 4 minutes. Real fast. Is that 4 minutes or 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Self-introduction. Okay, the 2-minute drill. We talked a little bit about this last week. The 2-minute drill is going to be something that's going to be extremely important for you to know, to write out, and to almost memorize. You need to know about yourselves. You need to be able to say it in 2 minutes. As a matter of fact, this 2-minute drill, we're going to have another 2-minute, we don't call it 2-minute drill, we call it 2-minute introduction when we start talking about interviewing. And it's going to be a similar type of thing, but it's kind of flipped. So, a lot of times you hear people say to you, you know, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, right? In like an interview. That will be, we'll talk about in 2-minute introduction. This 2-minute drill is telling the audience what you've done and what you want to do. So again, it's not to be confused with 2-minute introduction, which we'll go over in 3 more lessons. It's used at networking, and it could be used in interviewing, and it's definitely used in social settings. This 2-minute drill should be used whenever you want to market yourself. Okay, you're at a cocktail party, you are at a picnic, Some are going to be a picnics. You want the July 4th picnics. You're going to be losing your job. You want to let people know you're going to be losing your job. You want to do it in a positive way. Okay? This is the 2-minute drill. So what is the 2-minute drill? If you're staying in the same profession or field, I recommend 90 seconds about your past history. Then you're going to switch it from past history to a critical juncture. Here's what, as you're aware, or maybe you're not aware of, here's what's going on in my life. And 30 seconds of what your future is going to be like. Then you're going to end it with a question. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to tell you what my 2-minute drill is if I was going to continue to stay in this profession, so you kind of get an understanding of what does all this mean. Because it's just a bunch of crap on the slide. If you're changing professions or field, you do the opposite. You do 30 seconds of past history, and you talk about 90 seconds about what you're looking to do in the future. So I haven't yet developed my 2-minute drill for being a teacher. But instead, I'm not going to go on for 90 seconds about how I was re-engineering, and I headed up claims area, and I headed up imaging distribution and broker services, because then I want to be a teacher. Right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. If I want to stay in my same profession, it makes sense to brag a little bit about what I did in the past to show people. Now, I haven't done this in a while. Anyone have a watch? You want a second hand on it? Anyone? Anyone?
I have one.
Okay. Tell me when to go. I'm going to give you my 2-minute drill. Tell me how long it takes. Go. Just to let you know, I'm an actuary by profession. I have 22 years of experience in 3 major financial services companies. For the last 15 years, though, I've played a non-traditional actuarial role. I've done things like re-engineering. I've worked in change management and project management, specifically in areas such as customer services, operations, and product development. Let me give you some examples. While I was at Travelers, my re-engineering efforts saved over $4 million a year. And in American Scania, several re-engineering processes that I helped lead saved $3 million a year. I spent 2 years consulting at Deloitte & Touche, where I was able to use my experience and expertise in helping our clients meet their needs, especially in things with service and re-engineering type issues. Most recently, I was the Vice President of Operations at American Scania, which is a Prudential financial company, responsible for imaging distribution, licensing and appointments, claims, commissions, tax reporting, and client communications. At other points, I had responsibilities for variable life operations and business continuity. As you may know, in May of 2003, Prudential purchased American Scania. Even though they asked me to stay on, I felt I might not fit in with Prudential's culture over the long term. Therefore, I agreed to sign on and stay on and help them through transition and moving on to our administrative platform from ours to theirs, and I left the company in September of 2004. I'm looking for a challenging customer services and operations position which will allow me to utilize my people skills, my project skills, and my knowledge of re-engineering and change management. I'd like the position to be somewhere between Hartford and New York City, preferably around Stamford. I'd enjoy hearing your reactions or suggestions concerning my search. What are your thoughts? Time?
Minute 40.
Minute 40. So I could have slowed it down. I could have put in a few more things. But as you can see, a lot more time spent on what I've done. Switched it over. As you're aware, here's my future. So you want to give a quick introduction. This person doesn't know you. Okay, especially, this is mainly for the secondary person. The primary person knows you. You don't have to give a 2-minute introduction. You can probably just go with the as you're aware part for someone who knows you. Or if you're not aware, let me tell you. But if you're meeting someone that Harold Derrick suggests you talk to John Doe at IBM, he doesn't know you from hole to wall. You're sitting in front. You need to tell John Doe who you are, what your history is, what your future is, and what you're hoping to do, how that person can possibly help you. Any questions on that? And obviously, each of your 2-minute drills are going to be a lot different than, I can't spoon feed you your 2-minute drill. You know what you've done in the past. Matter of fact, all the things that you've been working on with your resume, all the things you've been working on for everything that we've been leading up to, will help you in your 2-minute drill. Give examples, give it, etc. Yes, Scott?
Can you repeat your ending question?
Can you repeat your ending question? Make sure I answer my questions. Read the answers. My question was, I enjoy hearing your reactions or suggestions concerning my search. What are your thoughts? Another one could be, there's a ton of questions you could have that puts it over there. You could say things like, I'm hearing, I've heard that the jobs are really opening up in Connecticut right now. Have you heard anything about what's going on in the Stamford area? So you're kind of trying to get them to think about, you're not saying, do you have a job for me? You're trying to get them to think of
An
what's going on.
open-ended question.
It's an open-ended question. One they don't have to answer yes or no to, right? One they can start giving you advice. They might say, well, I really haven't heard anything about Stanford. So I'm really not sure what's going on. Oh, that's okay. Well, and then you go right into your next thing, which is your information gathering type questions. But you've taken the focus from you, you've given the focus back to them. They either take it and run with it or they don't, and it goes back to you afterwards. And remember, always take notes about whatever they say. I don't care what the heck they say. I don't care if you think it's crap or not. You continue to write, because they're not going to think you're listening to them unless you're writing down what they're saying. Write. Anything else with the 2-minute drill? Okay. Information gathering type questions. I have, the next 2 slides are types of questions. You have to pick or choose, you can come up with your own. And I recommend that you pick 1 or 2 questions only from the next 2 pages. 1 or 2 questions only from the next 2 pages. And some of these could be also the question that transfers things over to the next, the question at the end of your 2-minute drill. So another question is, in your opinion, are my skills transferable to another industry? So if you're thinking about going to another industry, if your last statement was, I've been in the insurance industry for the last 10 years, but I'm thinking about being in imaging outside the insurance industry, you think my skills are transferable outside the insurance industry? Oh yeah, imaging, this, blah, 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 blah. Oh sure, blah, 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 blah. Okay, they might say blah, blah, blah. They might say they weren't answering the question. Now that you know a little bit about my background, what kind of candidate do you think I would be in your field? Since you know the industry well, what are the opportunities going to be in the next 6 months? I know the typical career progression in my former industry, but not yours. In your opinion, where would my skills and experience best fit? Again, that's for someone who's thinking about getting out of insurance and going to something else. Are there opportunities in this field that I have overlooked? Right? Because you've given advice as to what you think you're going towards. What I'm hoping to do is get a job over here. Is there something I'm overlooking? It might give you, And again, some of this advice is going to be good, but you're really trying to get them to talk, and this isn't the real reason you're there, but you told that's the reason you're there, so that's why you're asking these questions. And you're going to write down everything. What advice do you have for me as I begin my career search? Please give me an honest assessment of how, for the end of the session, you might say this. Please give me an honest assessment of how you feel I handle myself in our meeting today. How can I be more effective in my next meeting? I wouldn't say that right off the beginning. Page 2, and again, you're only picking 2 questions from these 2 pages. Pick the ones that you think are going to, break the ice and help you get that person more comfortable in helping you out. What are the primary tasks and responsibilities in your functional area? I'm attending an XYZ convention next month in Las Vegas. What company should I target? Who should I contact ahead of time so I can meet them while I'm there? What specific skills are needed in this type of work? If it's, so for instance, I'm going to be a teacher, right? I've never taught before. I might sit down and part of my network question might be, what kind of skills do you think I need to get into the math teaching profession? Okay? What are the major problems and issues in your, in the industry? What's going on here? If someone was talking to Leah about doctors, she would probably talk about malpractice insurance and the malpractice crisis that's going on there. What are the opportunities for advancement in this industry? What future do you see for this industry? Since I'm making a career change, what is the best way to be taken seriously? That's probably what I'm going to use. If they bring up an obstacle about you, okay, so they say, wow, you want to be a teacher, but you know absolutely nothing about math. Okay. You want to reverse that obstacle and say, well, how would you overcome that obstacle if you were me? Well, I'd go back to college and get a math degree. You might say, but you want to take any obstacle they come up with, say, that's all. I didn't even think about that. If you were me, what would you do? I'm looking for advice. I'm looking for counsel. Remember, 2 questions out of these 2 pages, because the next set of questions is the bread and butter of why you're going there. You want to utilize almost every single one of these questions, and you want to utilize these questions almost in this order. Okay? If you were working to fill a position and we're going to use a search firm, who would you use? Some of you may use this, some of you may not use this. Okay, but some of the managers and supervisors might use this more often than some of the folks in the front line.
Would that be considered like an agency?
Yes, you can say that. If you were working to fill a position and we're going to use an employment agency, who would you use?
Right.
If you were working to fill this position, would you consider a temporary agency And which temporary agency would you use?
Yeah, because they do hire from agencies, but specific agencies
Yep.
carry
Yep,
certain firms.
extremely good.
Can you repeat what she just said?
She said that, so some people hire from employment agencies, and it'd be very good to hear which employment agencies people are utilizing.
In order to go with that firm.
In order, right, you could go to that firm, or you can network and talk to that firm. They might know people there, that are hiring, and you get in front of more people that way.
Well, would you walk into an agency and would you recommend, you walk into an agency, yeah, I got my resume, and what's available, and who can handle?
Not right off. And we'll talk about this a little bit more when we talk about the future methods, which talks about search firms. But I'm going to expand that thought when we talk about it, not just search firms, but employment agencies. And I'll tell you the reason right away. If you can get into a company directly,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
the company does not have to pay an employment agency or a search firm any money. If you go straight to the search firm now, while you might think it's easier, one, it's passive, and number two, a company's going to much rather pick Janice, who they got directly from her walking through the door, than paying whatever percentage they have to pay on top of your salary to get you into that job. So they're good to be utilized, but they're not your first line of attack. Second question: have you heard of any other search firms or employment agencies with a good reputation? Again, here's what you're trying to get feedback out there. This person has seen more people than you have. I've had 2 meetings like this with past business associates. Well, hopefully you're going to have 35 or 40 meetings like this with past associates. So you might say, I've had several meetings like this with past associates. They've been really helpful. Between them, I've received 8 or 9 referrals. Do you know of anyone like yourself, friends or business associates, with whom I should be speaking? Now, I want you to make sure, right now, you've kept that 25 companies in your back pocket. You have not taken that out yet. Okay? You're asking them just to brainstorm off the top of their head. Do you know anyone else like yourself that could offer me some career advice? What's the best way to contact them? Can I use your name? So hopefully you're going to get their name, you're going to get their number, and you're going to say, yes, please tell them that Harold Derrick told you to call. Next question: is there anyone at your company that I should talk to that might have contacts in this industry or this area? Okay? And then, after that, now you want to take out of your back pocket, hopefully it's not your back pocket because it's crumpled and wrinkled. You want to take out of your back pocket your targeted companies list. And you want to say to them, hey, given your knowledge, experience, and expertise, what do you think of this list, and you know anyone at these companies? So they're going to say, well, IBM's not hiring. I really wouldn't go to IBM. You can take them on their offer list based on their advice or not. Oh, but I know someone at IBM, or I know someone at American Standard, or I know someone at Prudential. Here's Harold Derrick's name, and here's the number. Please tell him I told you to call. And that's your goal. Your goal is to get 2 or 3 names. Anywhere down here, 2 or 3 names. How many of you get these 2 or 3 names? So the first thing you tell them, just brainstorm. Now you're telling them, hey, look, I got something specific. And they go, oh, my next door neighbor works at such and such. My next door neighbor's husband works at such and such. Or my next door neighbor's boyfriend or girlfriend works at such and such. Go.
Should you really ask, can I use your name? Because what if they say no?
Then you can't use their name.
Is it better just not to ask and then use their name? You told me before sometimes.
Yeah.
Decide whether you want to ask.
I think the best thing to do is find out a way to contact them. Usually they will say, please, feel free to use my name. You almost don't have to ask that question. There's sometimes I told you last week, there's times someone wanted to get into Travelers, and I said, if I were you, I would not use my name. They don't like me. They don't respect me. Use my name, they're going to hang up on you. So you just say, you've heard through, read it through the trade industry, you heard it through Make Trade magazine, your name came up to me from some meeting in a cocktail party. I don't remember who told me. You want to get the name out there. But you're right, if you ask, you might be turned down. So I would hold off. You might want to hold off on that. But usually they give you a blanket. Yeah, go ahead and use my name. The other thing that's not on here that you may or may want to ask is if you really do want advice on your resume. But you definitely want to hand the person your resume. I think we'll talk about that in the next slide. But again, if you told them you want advice on their resume, because that was one of their objections, make sure that's on your list. Probably right before the first referral question. Any other questions on referral questions? Again, you should probably steal every single one of these questions. Now, if you know the person well, so it's your primary contact, the one other thing I would suggest is you might want to ask them if they're willing to be a reference. Where you get referrals in about 3 or 4 more lessons, maybe 4 or 5 more lessons. But it's always good to get your references up front for when you actually start going to job interviews and you're able to prepare them for the information that they need. Okay, so we spent 12 or 13 minutes on referral questions and on questions in general. Now we're going to close. Big, bold, capital letters. Finish on time. Leave that copy of the 25 targeted companies that you gave them. Make a lot of copies. Every time you sit down and talk to somebody, leave that. Why? Because some people might keep it by their desk and think of somebody else, or they might keep it with your resume and put it off to the side, and all of a sudden look it up. Oh, I just met someone at a conference from such and such. Matter of fact, Lisa Foote, as you all know, she's moving to Minneapolis. I just found out Hayward's going to Allianz in Minneapolis. Send her an email. At least you're looking for jobs in Minneapolis. I'm not sure you're at Hayward Sawyer's over there. You pick up the phone and call him. So, you want these people to be working for you not only in that 20, 30 minutes, but you want them to think about you from time to time in the future to help you out.
So that list should really include your contact information and everything, so that if they do look at it later.
No, because you're leaving your resume, right? The next one says leave a copy of your resume, and that's going to have your contact information on it. I would get their business card before you leave. It's very important because you're going to write them a thank you note. Okay, you're going to thank them for their time and energy, and we'll talk a little bit about what it says on the thank you notes in the next slide. You want to thank them again, and you want to give them a commitment that you're going to follow up with them on a periodic basis. Right? I hope you don't mind from time to time, every several weeks, we need to call, let you know what's going on with my job search. But I really, really appreciate you spending the time. Thanks and have a great day. Oh, by the way, if there's anything I can ever do for you, you see my resume, so if you want to know, someone is at American Scandia that you want to get in contact with, just let me know.
If you're looking for investors, why would they want to cut your resume? Why would they want to retain it if they think they're going there for just investment?
Well,
What if they don't want it? They're giving it back to you. Here's your resume.
They very rarely will give it back to you.
Keep it.
Well, you say, well, just in case you need to get in contact with me, all my contact information is at the top. Right? You want to write down my name and number and email address? It's right here. It's at the top. I've never given back a resume. And I still have some resumes from people I met with 3, 4, 5 years ago. I think I finally think about it the other day when I went, I'm out of business. If they want me, they want me. Any question on the closing? Okay, follow-up. This is extremely important as well. Use the information on the business card to write a thank you note. Use specifics that you discussed. Dear Harold, thank you very much for spending the time with me last week to talk about my job search strategies. Just to let you know, I made telephone calls to 3 of the people you already asked me to call. I called Diane Johnson, Bill Gerodos, and Priscilla Romalo, and I have meetings scheduled with them in the next 2 weeks, which I'm sure are going to be very fruitful and very helpful. Oh, by the way, wanted to get back to you on the question that you asked about, what kind of scanners we use in American Scandia. We use the Kodak 8570s, and my people tell me that they're the best scanners in the business, and and you should really look toward, if you're really thinking about purchasing scanners, that might be the way to go. Once again, thank you for your help. I'll definitely keep in touch. If there's anything I can ever do for you, please let me know. Love and kisses, Harold. Okay, you take that love and kisses part out. Then I would develop a tickler file to track who and when you talk to these people, who you need to contact, and you need to, this is very important, people don't do this. You need to follow up every 3 to 4 weeks with the people you're meeting with. You need to keep a tickler system for that. So if you met with me today, in 3 or 4 weeks, you need to figure out somehow to get back in touch with me. The best way to do it is in a way that's not going to take up a lot of my time. So if you call me, you don't want to get me. You don't. You want to call in the evening, later at night. Oh, by the way, I knew I was going to get your voicemail. I didn't want to bother you. Just want to let you know that I met with Bill, Priscilla, and Maureen, and they gave me 5 or 6 other contacts. My job search is really hot right now. And oh, by the way, they suggested that I put on, give me a company. What's that company in Danbury? Durso. They suggested that I throw Duracell on my list of 25 companies because they said Duracell's hiring. Hey, so if you think of anybody from Duracell, hey, let me know. Talk to you soon, have a great day. So now, maybe all of a sudden this person has someone from Duracell, right? You didn't know that because you're not going to pick up the phone, you don't want to spend another 20 minutes talking to the person, but if they have someone from Duracell, boom, they're going to be, hey, I do know someone from Duracell. So you want to either get their voicemail, or you want to send them an email, something that's not going to take them a lot of time to read, to review, and you don't want to get into a 10, 20-minute telephone conversation with them, unless they call you up. They call you up and say, hey, I know someone from Duracell, let me, but you want to put the onus, you don't want to put the burden on them for having to sit down and talk to you for another 5 or 10 minutes. Very important, because your network dries up if you don't follow up. You don't call me up after today, I might have forgotten about you. I'm busy doing this, I'm busy doing that, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. 3 weeks later goes by, oh, I hear from Diane Johnson, that's right, Diane's looking. She told me she's looking for a new company. And I've had people call me and say, oh, do you know anybody at this company? I'm now thinking about going to this company, Do you know anybody? No, but I might know somebody who's in the profession who might know somebody at that company.
Also, they may not know if your status has changed. You might have,
They may not know if your status has changed. They might,
and so they say, she must have found something.
Right. By the way, and I'm not sure I even have this, but just to let you know, once you finally get a job, you need to send out letters to everyone that you've ever met with to tell them where you are with all your contact information. Because you want these guys to be your network for the future, and you want them to come and help and call you up if they need anything, because they've been helpful one way or another in helping you find their job, finding your next job. Homework. Okay, and I know some of you are going to be behind. You guys need to spend, you're leaving work early because the work is done, and you start spending some time on catching up because eventually it's going to come crashing down on you. I know some of you haven't come see me about your resumes yet. I'm not sure if you've written your first set of things that you had to write, but you need to start writing up your 2-minute drill. Again, you need to practice saying it out loud with your partner. Okay? If you guys aren't beating each other up, you should be beating each other up. I know a lot of folks aren't doing this. Develop a written agenda for your networking meeting with 5 to 7 questions. Again, as Peg has said from the last meeting, it's almost all there for you. Pick out the questions. Write it up. Type it up. Make sure you know it. You want to make sure you have it in front of you, because you're going to use that at your meetings. You don't have to memorize that. You're going to actually utilize that. And by the way, you can't start having your networking meetings with people around the room until you've done some of these things. And now you have T-minus 8 to 9 weeks before the September people lose their jobs. If you do 2 or 3 a week, starting next week, that's 20 meetings right there. And I just for the IBM person, I just got 3 people know someone at IBM. So there's folks out there that know folks. Bring everything to your class next week. Bring your written agendas, bring your 2-minute drills. And as I said before, in future homework sessions, I'm going to actually ask you to try to set up meetings with 2 or 3 people in this room. They all know what you're going through. They're all going to be very friendly. They're all going to be sympathetic. They're all not going to be looking at you when you screw up and trip over your words. Right? It's all going to be one-on-one. I'm not going to ask you to videotape it. You do it in a room. Okay? Do it in a conference room. Do it set yours up, have them set theirs up, spend 40 minutes, you do 20 minutes, they do 20 minutes. Critique each other. Give each other suggestions. You want to leave here doing 25 to 30 of these things before, so your next one is your 36th.
They say if you're really nervous, you can do it in the mirror first.
You can do it in the mirror. You can do it in the mirror. Okay, was today worth the time? Let you out a little bit early today. Any questions about any of this stuff? Because some of you guys are courageous enough to ask the question in front of the group, and some of you come to me afterwards, and I hopefully remember the question for the next week.
I have a question.
Lisa.
Kind of jumps to what you haven't said yet, but what's the difference between this 2-minute drill and the other, tell me about yourself?
Repeat the question, please.
The question is, what's the difference between this 2-minute drill and the 2-minute drill of the interviewing 2-minute drill? The introductory 2-minute drill. God bless you. This 2-minute drill is, it talks a bit about, again, it can be different depending on whether you're staying in the industry or leaving the industry. Right? If you're leaving the industry, it's much, much different because you're spending 30 seconds of your time on your past life, and you're spending 90 seconds of your time on your future. Whereas your 2-minute introduction, tell me a little bit about yourself, is going to go back to personal stuff as well. My 2-minute introduction starts off with I was born in Bridgeport, but I was raised in Shelton, Connecticut. Went to Shelton High. From there, went out to University of Connecticut, where I blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you, tell me a little bit about yourself. That's the answer to the 2-minute introductory question. And tell me a little bit about yourself doesn't start off with, well, I've been a professional for 22 years. I did something before that. I went to school, I went to college. Here's what I did at maybe if for teaching, I used to tutor in college, right? Maybe I put that in my 2-minute introduction. Then I came over here, and so when it said some things about business, but I volunteered and did this with kids, and I did that with kids. So tell me about yourself is a little bit different than let me tell you a quick synopsis of my professional history. And that's the difference. Was today worth the time?
Yes.
Is there anything we're missing? Any other questions? 7 minutes early. Have a great week. Catch up on your homework, folks.